one of the best DJs I've ever heard, a legend. Lori Branch is with us tonight. We can't be more blessed than that. Gerald Lott of the Bird's Nest. We can't be more blessed than this. Let's get him on here. Let's get to going with the show.
All right, without further ado, welcome to the set. Gerald Lott and Lori Branch. Hey, what's happening, you two?
What's happening, everybody?
All right, now.
So good to see you guys, and thank you for joining us on House Culture Conversation. First off, Lori, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm better now that I'm here with you, of course.
And Gerald, we see you out there. You snowed in the car, huh?
Man, I'm sitting out here on the side of the road. We doing what we do.
Hey, well, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and we're going to talk a lot about the Bird's Nest House Music podcast in a minute, but let's do a couple of introductions a little bit. Joe, let's start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself and your connection with the house culture and genre?
Gerald Lott. I'm the executive producer of the Bird's Nest. I've been involved in the music business for 40 years now, which I hate to say, but it's true. Back from when I was renting gear to cats to DJ, back when I was in 9th grade at Ignatius, to working for Vince Lawrence for over a dozen years in his recording studio, Slang Music Group, and then off on my own and promoting nightclubs. I did some of the biggest parties in the city for a while, so I've seen a thing.
Hey, well, welcome. And Lori, we always say she needs no introduction, but we're happy to hear from her always. What's happening?
Thank you. I think everybody needs some introduction, Suffice it to say, thank you for having me on the show. I love being on this end of it because I like to talk and have these great conversations about our history and how we celebrate it. And I've been, in the house music culture, and I love that you use the term culture, for a long time, since I was a wee little teenager many years ago, 1980 to be exact. And in some way, shape, or form, trying to either play the music, talk about the music, hear the music, dance to the music. I'm all about the music. So thanks for having me.
We are so glad to have you. And so, Lori, why do you think this music just continues to thrive even today, 40 plus years later?
Well, I think it's because it's positive. It's about love, and everybody needs more of it. It has a gravitational pull. And I know people who've never listened to house music, and suddenly, last year or so, I've met these folks, and they're like, I just started listening to it. I never knew it was like this. I heard about it, but I never really quite understood. I never got it. And sometimes, little cousins will come to my sets if I'm somewhere else and be like, this is so happy. This is great. I'm like, yeah, but we've been talking about this for 40 years, welcome to the party.
That's right. That's right. Gerald, your thoughts on that? Why is this thing just continuing to roll?
I agree. A lot of it is because of that positive nature, but also because it is something that is truly ours. It's organically in my DNA. And I was thinking about this question earlier. When I was in school in New Orleans at Xavier was much smaller. It's about 2,500 students. And it felt like about 400 of them came from Chicago. and one thing we had in common, when the party would get going, we throw our house and you could hear Chicago go raise the roof and everybody else be standing around looking like, what's with them people? But it was ours. It was what we knew, what we grew. It was us.
That's it. And hey, for all of our guests that are joining and listening in, don't hesitate to give us comments in the chat. Scott A. Wright, welcome aboard. Glad to have you tonight. And Dewey, your thoughts? Lori and Joe made some really good comments about why that culture is just still thriving today and why the music is so important and inspired by us in a lot of ways. What's your thoughts?
The music keeps on going because of Lori, because of Gerald, simply and plain. They just keep us going, playing records and authorizing records to be played. If they put that stamp on it, it's a good record, and that's why the music just keeps going.
That's it.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Thank you, Dewey.
You're welcome.
We know. I know Lisa from way back when we were little. She grew up on my grandmother's block, and we hung out when we were just little bitty kids, and we have remained friends. And that's the thing about the culture; it just has kept us together. It's so amazing how so many years later the relationships and bonds because of the music, creating an amazing culture. Johnny Goins, what's happening, John? Good to see you tonight.
John.
Yes, yes. So, Gerald, what's one of your most favorite memories? One of your most endearing memories about house music?
I remember being at Sowers, and there was a song called Sukaleo.
Oh,
And I just remember dancing to Sukaleo, and dancing so long that my father, I couldn't have been more about 14, 15. My father had to come up in the spot and get me out, and him cussing me out, talking about I had to pay to get in here.
They didn't let your dad in free, man. They ain't let your dad in free.
No, man.
Man.
that is something. That's something. Candy Lady, what's happening, Candy? It's good to see you always. So, Lloyd, what's one of your memorable moments?
All right, can I cheat and have two?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
We
so
can go
and the
for
reason
another round.
okay, the reason I want to have two is because I like the you know how E talks about house music culture and house music canon. I always give him props for that because it was like that is exactly how we need to talk about it. So I have a house music culture memory and a house music canon memory. And when I think about my house music culture, it's the first time I heard Your Love, and I was with my friend Craig Loftus. You know, that was my running buddy, still my buddy, but we came up together, and we were in his basement. And this girl we knew named Adrian Jett was hanging out with him and Frankie and Jamie Principal when they put together Your Love. And he's like, "You are gonna die when you hear this song. It's like nothing you've ever heard before." And we were sitting there, and he was like, and I just remember him going, "Listen to this part, and listen to this part." And I was like, "This track is great. It's going to put Chicago on the map." And so that was my house music. That was before we were calling it house music, but it was certainly part of that sound that became.
So now, when did we call it house music? When did it just move into that?
We've had this debate for so long, but I will say this because this is related to my second story, which is about Chip E. And because Chip E, I think, was the first person who actually had the term house in a song, like it's house. But before that, he had like this. And Chip E was someone I knew as like a small, like teenager who, when I was, big teenager, he was a small teenager, and we're hanging out at Sowers. And we always loved Chip E. He was kind of hanging out with our little crew and trying to just, be down. But he was like a little brother. And then suddenly he kind of blows up. And I'm like, that's Chip E? Chip? That's little Chip? And he's having a party at this roller skating rink on the north side somewhere, anywhere. And I go, and he's just all decked out. And he's got his hair going, his outfit, and his song is banging. Everybody's hitting it. And he looks at me. He gives me this wink like, yeah. I was like, yeah, you did it, boy. You did it. I remember that. I remember that wink.
That is great. That is great. So, Joe, what's another one of your stories out there?
Well, I mean, Chip E. He was at Chip E. was at my high school, and I can remember that cat. I remember that. I don't remember that day, but I remember that time because he went from 6 to 10 real quick, but in a good way,
Yeah.
It was never. Chip was never one to put on airs. It just. Man, thinking back, man, it's like my whole high school career was just wrapped up in this. This is the nostalgia of my life. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Derek. Didn't you live on 91st Street?
Oh, yeah.
So you was like 4 blocks from my house. I mean, this was our world. Walking around with your Izod cardigan matching your Izod socks, and
you guys are so middle class.
And one pant leg bleached out, penny loafers, and
love it.
Putting a dime in your penny loafers. I remember, the groups, the detectives. Who were the other cats?
Yes.
Man, I mean, don't take me down memory road. I'll get lost.
Doctors, the Pep Boys, the Prep Boys, whatever they call them. There are
Oh,
many
my gosh.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you know, I'm a remiss because people will watch this and say, "What about like we just heard? What about you know?" So there's many things that claim house music, as you know, and you know
Mhm.
Jesse Saunders had the first what he calls the first house music pressed record.
Mhm.
But you know, but we were also talking about Your Love, which was on Reel to Reel when we first heard it. Then there's Trippie, who has the term in his song. And then there's Leonard Roy, who said, I was playing house music. I put up a sign in a club, the bitter end on the South Side.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, we play house music. So I'm not here to to say where it came from, but I will say that all the forces in the South Side universe came together and West Side to make that happen around 1984. That's my
Why has
answer. I'm sticking to it.
I have a personal just interest in why that question revs up so much dust. Like people try to claim house and the origins of house.
Oh, well, because it's pretty important. You know, it's I mean, anybody wants to look, we history is very important to us. When we think about the founding of this country, we go down to the dates when this thing happened and these people fought each other and who won. And I think, you know, it's our revolution. It's when everything changed, you know, in the music game. And we
Yeah.
happen to be in the room where it happened, like everybody here. You know, figuratively, the larger room, Chicago, you know, we were there when it happened. So I think folks want to get the facts right, and it's very difficult to nail it down because
I,
everybody's got a different accounting of it.
I think that what's lost in this is the significance that globally EDM or electronic dance music is the third most popular style of music in the world. That's what the world is listening to. I know that the
Wow.
United States is doing hip hop, but everybody else is doing EDM.
Hmm.
And EDM started down the street from my crib. You know what I'm saying? That's what you know. That's my bragging right. Like Lori said, I was there when it launched. I may not have done nothing with it because I was on them other
But you
things
saw it.
a hell of a lot more creative.
Yeah.
But it was down the street, and that's my claim to fame. And you know, one of the taglines that we use on our podcast is you can't know electronic music if you don't know Chicago house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world that thinks they know hip hop thinks they know something about Brooklyn in '87,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
How come they don't think they know something about Hyde Park in '83, right? If you house, you're supposed to know.
There it is. There it is. Now you're hitting the crux of why it's so important that we have these interactions. Before I switch that gear, though, we got some unfinished business. You guys were talking about some
Oh,
of the groups that were out, so I want to catch up on some of these some of these comments that were out there. The Rude Boys and what was it? The preps, and you can't get away with a conversation without Hans's name coming up. So we got to throw that out there. Shout out to Hans. Hope you are well out there and listening. And then Lisa brought up the Ron Hardy set.
Yes.
So much history, and I think you're so right, Lori, when you say we've really got to get it right. Our
mm-hmm.
history is important, and the accuracy and the preservation of that is so important. And then we had Lisa again. We were so young at the warehouse, Frankie baby.
Oh yeah, and you know it.
Again, I want to switch a gear because you guys, the podcast is amazing. I listened to a few episodes around the Hot Mix 5, and I really applaud you for the work there because that is not easy. One, it's not easy. It's a labor of love. It's a commitment to the genre, the culture, and to everything that is house. So I appreciate you for that first and foremost. So I want to talk a little bit about how the Bird's Nest podcast for house music came about. I'll start with you, Gerald, because I know, Laura, you're the co-host. So I want
Yeah, that's
to,
his baby.
yes, his
I'm
baby.
just like they welcome me as a hopefully a permanent visitor, but you know that's what's up.
So,
I
Right.
Gerald,
moved in.
tell us a little about where it comes from. What were the origins of this so needed content and media?
Vernell Byrd, who is our host, was the music director for party I was doing, and we just saw the following he had, and he was doing these Facebook mixes where people would come to the house and he would live stream it, and he was getting 300-400 people watching it. This was pre-COVID, and we were just like, wow, maybe there's something that we could do that's a little more permanent, and we started thinking about the fact that some of our friends in the house music culture aren't long for this world. Let's be real. And so, maybe we could document them. So we started doing that. We did some interviews. Then COVID hit, and it seemed like every DJ in the world got online and started mixing. And we said, well, what can we do different? And the idea came, how about we dive deeper? How about I've used this line, all the time, but how about we be the This American Life of house music? Let's get those questions answered. Let's take 8 weeks and figure out who was the first house song, or, why is it that cats that had #1 singles and looked like they were about to blow up die penniless? These are the big issues, and I'd like to get into them. So we went out, we hired a impartial researcher. We got Lori, because Lori is amazing at leading an interview, and we just took off and did it, and it's been really cool, and we're loving it.
I can't I can't agree more. It really is well done. The production quality and just the writing and it's really good and rich content. So everybody out there, if you have not listened to the Bird's Nest House Music Podcast, go lock it in. They've got so much content, and it's so educational. And I want to turn that over to Lori, because Lori, you've been at this for years, keeping a record and an archive through your vintage house work as well. So tell me how this fits together and how you find the synergy in this.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, thanks for the shout out for Vintage House. Vintage House was a baby of Lauren Lowry, who's sort of our executive producer and creator of the show, and that comes from her desire to archive and celebrate, the various contributors to house music through the Dance Music Foundation that she runs. And Vintage House was another way to do that. To start off just as a radio program on WUR, where we would, play songs and then we'd interview people. And she interviewed me once, and I live, part of the reason was I only live like 10 minutes away from the studio. And I was like looking for something like, something that was a little bit more than DJing here and there. And I appreciate the format. I like talking to people. I love hearing stories. I'm a little bit of an amateur historian myself. And so that's just how that went. She asked me to be a part of it. I became a part of it, and the rest is history. So we've been doing it for 5+ years now. First on the radio, then we added sort of the Facebook Live, and people really started getting into that. And it really opened up a new world for me, just in terms of better understanding the significance of why this is so important to other people. Not only just us, from Chicago, but for people around the world. Like, people have a significant investment in understanding, especially young people, especially scholars. And I saw that being on the campus of Northwestern, where I would have to go sometimes and talk to classes, and they're just like, really, so you don't realize like what you have until you see how people desire to really understand it and know it. And for us, it's just our childhood memories, So it really helped me to like think more seriously about how do I honor, all these contributors. I was just a part-time DJ on the scene and really a club kid, just hanging out while this was going on. But I was in a position to witness history being made. And so let me leverage that and the people that I know to help fill in the gaps in the storyline. And I think my work with the Bird's Nest was quite natural. I love Vernell. Vernell has invited me down to spend at the party that he and Gerald do down on South Michigan. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name, Gerald. M Lounge, right, which was just such a funky groove. I really loved it. I'm sorry that's not happening now. But we had a few chats about it, and Vernell's been on my show several times. So I think Gerald was like, "You guys have a really great chemistry," and we do. And so he asked me if I would come on and work with Vernell, and I'm like, I'm happy to do that. And being the age I am very like, here's what I want and here's what I don't want. Because look, all of us know about passion projects, and and not that this is one, because Gerald's like, no, we're going to try to like pay people. This is going to be legit. But you can only do so many like passion like projects, and so you have to prioritize like, what is it that you really want to do, whether anybody pays attention or not. Are you going to be happy with it?
Right.
And so I love this concept of like This American Life. This really this sort of exposing something over a period of time. That gives you a moment to breathe with a subject and to do research with it and to really unpack it. And I've been doing Vintage House for years, and we're kind of in and out. We have a guest, we talk for half an hour, we hear him play, then we're kind of on to the next thing. And this has really allowed me to dive a little bit deeper. And honestly, with the few shows that we have done, I've gained an even greater understanding of how this thing has impacted the world. I really have, just through Gerald's process. I really think he was brilliant to come up with the idea, and I feel really lucky to be a part of it.
Well done. It is really well done. I'm a huge fan of it just after a few. What I would love that you guys, if you would, talk about this Hot Mix 5 series and tell the people a little bit about what they can expect as they tune in, because it is really eye-opening. It goes into the depths of how they were formed, some of the issues that they had. Tell the people a little bit about that, Joe.
Well, we just, like I said, we hired a impartial researcher from North Carolina who had no idea what house was, and we did that on purpose because I didn't want him to be stuck at any of the sacred cows. I didn't want him to, don't ask so and so about such and such. I didn't want that. I want him to ask, and so he dug in, and then from there we started reaching out to people around it, and we ended up talking to Lee Michaels, who was the program director that put the Hot Mix 5 together. And I mean, this cat gave us the real nitty gritty. Like, hey, here's why I picked that guy. Here's why I picked that guy. We also have a few local DJs now, and they tell us how the Hot Mix 5 impacted them. We have First Lady is on this latest episode. She talks about how Farley got her started in radio mixing and how she was on the radio. We learned a ton about radio. One of the interesting things Lori was talking with Lee was, Lori was like, how come you all wouldn't let a record go for 12 minutes like we did at the club? And he's like, because we're thinking about people driving down Lakeshore Drive. If they don't like that song, they go turn off. So we gave them 20 songs in 12 minutes. But so it was really cool to hear some of those things and learn that. And then every show ends. In this case, we end with a mix from that time. So the first one I think was Ralphie Rosario from 1984. Then we did a Farley mix from 85. Last week, I think it was Mickey Oliver from 86 or 84. Can't remember, but it's really cool. It's like jumping in a time capsule, man. And it really takes me back. And I hope it does the same for you.
Yeah, it really was really good. And Lori, you're an outstanding interviewer, and the way you interact with the subjects and different things in the podcast is just really, I found myself captivated listening to it. And the Lee Michaels piece really was good because he talks about the business. He talks about the business of it. Okay, it wasn't just 5 DJs. It was like, how do you pay these guys? How do you keep them interested in where? To your point, Joe, how did you select them? How did you come up when he had a different way of thinking about it? It wasn't like we might have thought about it. Who are the hottest guys? You did it based on the where they represented. Like if you're in New York, you had your boroughs. Well, in Chicago, we had our sides of the city and the suburbs. So it was fascinating for me. I really appreciate the work and the care, and you can tell the care that you guys have put into that work. So I hope everyone will. Again, I'm going to take a minute to just put that up there so people can see the Bird's Nest House Music Podcast. Check it out. Gerald Lott, the executive producer, and DJ Lori Branch is the co-host of that amazing podcast. As we kind of wrap up, where do you all see this house music and the culture and the history? Where's it all going?
I think it's going up, I mean, honestly, I feel so hopeful about it. One of the guests, I just want to give him a quick shout out. Dr. Micah Salkind is a scholar from Providence, Rhode Island, and he was one of the people that we feature on the episode. Now, he has interviewed dozens of people for his book on house music, and it really, I mean, you are going to learn so much. And if I can still get excited, after being involved in this, 40 years, if I can still get like an aha moment, it's so much more to do. Like history is important because it creates, you've probably watched the show or heard the show Throughline. It's another podcast that I love, but it connects the past to the future. It's like you need to understand that to build from that. And so I feel like we have no place to go but up. We're learning more about ourselves. We're more connected. The silver lining about the pandemic is we get to meet folks we would never have met, because who would have the time to sit at home and do these kinds of things, right? We're reaching across the world. We had people from Australia on the show the other day. So, some really amazing things are happening. And I think once we get past this pandemic, I think we are in for a big treat as it relates to house music and Chicago's imprint on the rest of the world.
Well said, Joe.
I couldn't agree anymore. And I always look for the opportunity and the obstacle, and things like just this show and us being able to meet like this. A year and a half ago, we would have been like, I can't do it. I can't get to where they are. They can't get to it. Now we just put it together and we can do it, and everybody's where they are.
Yeah.
And I think this has brought us so much closer together. And I think there's a energy that's boiling up. And I would not be surprised if we see a new renaissance in house music when this is over. I think it's gonna pop, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Well, I thank you guys so much for a wonderful time. This has been great. We could go on, but Dewey's got work to do. But Dewey, I know you've been taking this all in. Man, what are your thoughts? This has been rich, and I'm full. How do you kind of bring that all together and take the people home, Dewey?
This is an important message. Hopefully everybody hears it. I mean, it's saying something about the music. These two people are authorities, as I said before. They're authorities on where it's going and how it's happening. So please listen to them. Also, buy some records, everybody. Buy some records.
That's right. Support your artists.
There you go. Buy some records. Lori, Gerald, thank you guys so much. I'll be tuning in, and I hope everyone everywhere will tune in to the Bird's Nest House Music Podcast. Take care. See everybody later.
Peace.
Bye now.